Hello, namaste, ani swagat cha कार्यक्रम के Aaja Ghar Mai ma. Well, के Aaja Ghar Mai, a complete home affairs show जुन आउने गर्छ every Sunday to Friday 12:30 बजेदेखि 1:30 बजेसम्म live on Kantipur HD. Well, यो शोमा we have guests from various walks of lives, different sectors, बाट हामी गेस्टहरुलाई बोलाउँछौं, उहाँहरुको जर्नी, उहाँको एक्सपर्टिज को बारेमा हामी कुराकानी गर्छौं, and we always try to make our show very informative and at the same time very entertaining. र आज पनि यस्तै नौलो टपिकमा यस्तै इन्ट्रेस्टिङ शोको साथमा हामीहरु यहाँ आइसकेका छौं. म यहाँहरुको होस्ट सागरिका.
Yes, and this is me Deepanjali. कार्यक्रम के Aaja Ghar Mai ma, as you all know, हामी different walks of life बाट गेस्टहरु बोलाउँछौं, उहाँहरुसँग कुराकानीहरु गर्छौं र कार्यक्रम आउने गर्दछ every day except Saturdays and yes 1:30 बजेदेखि 12:30 बजेदेखि 1:30 बजेसम्म हामी लाइभ जान्छौं. So basically आज पनि हामीसँग एकदम स्पेशल गेस्ट हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँको स्पेशल जर्नी जर्नी छ हैन, त्यो जर्नीको बारेमा हामी कुराकानीहरु पनि गर्छौं. But before that I would like to add Sagarika, normally हामी मान्छेहरु कस्तो हुन्छ भने इट्स एकदमै ह्युमन नेचर एउटा कस्तो भने हामी चाहिँ जे कुरा गर्नलाई पनि अलिकति आँट को खाँचो पर्छ हामीलाई, मोटिभेसनको खाँचो पर्छ हामीलाई हैन, हामीले केले पुश गर्ने हो, कहाँ रिच गर्ने हो. समटाइम्स लाइफमा एउटा यस्तो कन्डिसन पनि आउँछ कि वी डोन्ट नो व्हाट टु डु विथ आवर लाइफ र हामी केको लागि जन्मेको भन्ने कुराहरु पनि एउटा सर्टेन लाइफमा टर्निङ पोइन्ट आइसकेपछि देन वी रियलाइज दैट थिंग्स हैन. सो बेसिकली हाम्रो प्यासन, हाम्रो प्रोफेसन जे भए तापनि एउटा मान्छेको लाइफमा एउटा प्यासन हुन्छ नि, जस्तै म यो गर्न चाहन्छु, मेरो ड्रीम यो हो हैन भनेर हामी चाहिँ सोच्छौं. तर धेरै कम मान्छेले मात्रै आफ्नो ड्रीम र आफ्नो प्यासनलाई follow गरेको हामी पाउँछौं के. What do you think about this?
Yes, definitely, especially when you're young, हैन, young age मा पनि के हुन्छ भने we don't know what to do with our lives. के गर्ने भनेर पनि थाहा हुँदैन. Professionally maybe एउटा डाइरेक्सनमा हामी हिँडिरहेको हुन्छौं, तर हामीलाई खासमा what are we born to do? What is our passion भन्ने बारेमा चाहिँ हामी अझै पनि we always looking for that answer. र कहिलेकाहीँ यस्तो हुन्छ कि there are certain moments, certain you know कुनै टर्निङ पोइन्ट हुन्छ लाइफमा, कुनै इन्सिडेन्टले नि हाम्रो लाइफलाई शेप गर्छ, त्यसले हामीलाई एक किसिमको मोटिभेसन दिन्छ, एक किसिमको इन्स्पिरेसन पनि दिन्छ भने कहिलेकाहीँ we meet certain people र उहाँहरुबाट पनि we get so inspired and we get all the simple answers of our lives. जस्तै मैले भने नि के को लागि हामी जन्मेको, what are we born to do and what is our passion भन्ने पनि थाहा हुन्छ. र आजको गेस्ट पनि गेस्टसँग पनि हामी यस्तै कुरा गर्छौं र I would say that he is very inspiring in his own ways. आजको जो हाम्रो गेस्ट हुनुहुन्छ र आजको हाम्रो टपिक पनि निकै नै युनिक छ because first of all it's not every day that you meet someone who has conquered Mount Everest. I would like to say it's not every day that we meet them. It's very rare to actually be with them and talk to them. So आजको guest को हो जस्तो लाग्छ यहाँलाई?
Okay, को हो भन्दाखेरि पनि I would like to add up more about our guest, right? As Sagarika said, it's not like every day जस्तो होइन, हामीले we don't encounter them every day. Someone who has captured Everest हैन, र Mount Everest climb गर्ने भनेको त it's a very big thing अनि world record, it's like world record holder हैन. So त्यसमा पनि when you are a vegan, when we say about vegan भनेको के हो भनेर धेरै जस्तो हाम्रो दर्शकहरुले सोचिरहनु भएको हो भने it's like पूर्ण शुद्ध शाकाहारी हैन. त्यसमा पनि धेरै क्याटेगोरीहरु आउँछ. अब शाकाहारीमा पनि कतिले दूधहरु खानुहुन्छ हैन, अंडाहरु खानुहुन्छ कसैले. So that depends upon that. तर दूध पनि नखाने भेजिटेरियन एउटा vegan हुन्छ नि, एउटा शुद्ध पूर्ण शाकाहारी. स्पेशली एनिमल्सको बाट बनेको लेदरको ज्याकेटहरु पनि नलगाउने. बेसिकली एकदमै प्योर 100% एनी यो 100% भन्दा पनि I think if there is like more numbers to be added, pure vegan हैन, vegan भएर पनि Mount Everest capture गर्ने. I think first vegan Mount Everest climber as हामीसँग हाम्रो कार्यक्रममा as a guest हुनुहुन्छ. He is Mr. Kuntal Joisher, all the way from India, and उहाँले चाहिँ अब Mount Everest capture गर्नुभएको छ in his own ways, in his own challenges हैन, आफ्नो मोटिभेसन, उहाँको जुन अवेयरनेस क्याम्पेन छ, यो सबै कुराहरुलाई आजको हाम्रो कार्यक्रममा चाहिँ हामी एड्रेस गर्छौं. सबभन्दा फर्स्टमा उहाँलाई वेलकम गरौं. Mr. Kuntal, you are welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to it. Really excited to share my journey with your audience and with all the Nepali people. So really excited to be here.
Yes, welcome to our show, and we are also very excited to talk to you about your journey and all. So first of all, let us start with your background and what inspired you, and about your background from how you came from India to Nepal to climb Mount Everest for a specific reason, right?
Right. So before I actually get into the question, I just want to sort of talk about a point that she mentioned. She said that I conquered Mount Everest. So let me tell you that no one in this world can conquer Mount Everest. It is Mount Everest that decides who gets to the top and who, you know, doesn't get to the top. So on the day we got lucky, you know, that Sagarmatha allowed us to spend some time on her summit, and I did not conquer Sagarmatha. Okay, let me tell your audience very categorically, I did not conquer Sagarmatha.
But
yes.
but you made it.
You made it to the top.
I made it to the top, and you know, I spent 20 minutes on the top of Sagarmatha, and that were the most magical 20 minutes of my life. But going back to your question, how this all started.
Yeah.
Now, you know, let me tell you, a lot of us, when we are growing up in India, or possibly even in Nepal, actually in Nepal as well, when we are growing up, for me, my heroes were not Spider-Man or Superman. My heroes were actually Sherpa Tenzing. You know, I have always heard about the story of Sherpa Tenzing being the first person on, you know, the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So that's how I grew up. So that, you know, that idea of climbing Mount Everest was always there at the back of my head. I've always heard about Everest stories. I thought, what is Everest? And then sometime in 1997, I happened to see this documentary called PBS Nova documentary about Everest. That's when for the first time I saw the Khumbu icefall, I saw the Lhotse face, and I was like, just mesmerized by, you know, some of the scenes, and I thought, okay man, you know what, someday in my life I'm going to climb Mount Everest. It will happen someday. But then just like everyone, I, you know, did my 12th, I did my engineering, and I went to the United States to do my master's degree. I lived in the US for 6 years. Finally, I moved back to Bombay to take care of my father. And I was working as a CEO of a software company in Mumbai, and life was very good. Don't get me wrong. I was earning a lot of money, had a, you know, good family life, everything was going good. And then out of the blue, my wife Dipti and I decided that, hey, you know, both of us wanted to go and see some snow.
Okay.
Dipti had never seen snow in her life, and I had seen snow like 20 years ago. So where would you find snow? Of course, in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
So both of us, you know, came to the Himalayas, and 6 days we see no snow.
Okay.
Both of us are miserable, -5, -10 degrees every day. So then both of us decided, hey, why don't we go to this, you know, small peak? A lot of our friends had told us about it, and there's going to be a lot of snow on the peak. So we get to the peak, and we see the peak, and all these gigantic Himalayan peaks around us, and all of them are filled with snow, but we wanted to touch the snow.
Okay.
So our driver said, you know what, this small peak, we can drive to the top of the peak. So we start driving, and about 5 minutes into the drive, we run into almost 2 feet of snow. Oh. So our car can't go forward. So the driver says, you know, you can go and enjoy your time. So we enjoyed our time, and then we completely disregarded our driver's advice, and we started hiking.
Okay.
Now, I was in no shape to hike. I was 110 kgs. I had, you know, wore slippers, t-shirt and a jeans. No way prepared to hike, but still both of us hiked, and we kept hiking 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours. 4 hours later, in almost 3 feet of snow, we were standing on the top of that mountain.
Wow.
And if you ask me to point out one instance of my life that actually changed my entire life, it has to be that very instance.
Okay.
Imagine standing at a place and it being so quiet that you could hear your own heartbeat, like dhup, dhup. For a second, I was so worried that Dipti can even hear my heartbeat.
Okay.
Of course, she couldn't, but, and then, you know, what had happened to my life is, as a CEO, you are too much, you know, busy and too stressed out all the time. You are going through the motions in life. It had come to a point where I didn't even realize that I'm a live human being. You're just going through the day in, day out, 9 to 6, sometimes, you know, just doing this all the time. But standing on the top of that mountain, you know, all that worries about the future, all that pondering over mistakes in the past, everything melted away in that moment. And what came to extreme focus was the present moment. And I was able to live in that present moment. And I told myself, for the next, whatever my life is, you know, there, I am going to chase this feeling. I'm going to chase how I felt today. And this is how I want to, you know, live rest of my life.
Okay.
I came back home, and the very first thing I did, remembering, is, you know, just call my boss and say, hey, you know what, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So my boss said, take it easy, you know, take it easy. Sure, you know.
They all thought that it might be some kind of, you know, new passion or something like that, or just a...
When I told
my...
Were they worried about you or something?
They were not worried about me, but, like, you know, they thought, hey, he's Kuntal. He thinks of, new things every 6 months and then, forgets them. And then half of my family thought that, he's gone mad. हमारे हिंदी में बोलते पागल हो गया है. That's how, most of them told me. I'm like, no, this is, something I know is going to be with me for the rest of my life. And then I started hiking, I started doing smaller hikes in the Himalayas. And then I always had Everest at the back of my mind. And so I signed up to walk to Everest base camp.
Okay.
So I came to Nepal. This was the second time I was visiting Nepal. The first time I came here was when I was 4 years old. And this was my second visit back in October 2010. And about 8 days worth of walk, and we were a little close to Everest base camp. And on one of the evenings, we were all gathered in the dining tent. We were sort of all chit-chatting, talking to each other, eating some food. And then one of the Sherpa guys outside was like shouting my name. Kuntal, Kuntal, and I'm like, what happened? On the mountains, it's like shouting is never all good. So I like literally ran out, and the Sherpa said, look at the scene. And I turned around and I saw Everest burning golden in color. The last rays of sunset were falling on Everest. Every other mountain was in the color of grey and blue. Everest felt like someone had put fire on the snow.
Wow.
And when I saw Everest that way, I was like, this is the dream of my life, this is the goal of my life, this is the passion of my life. I'm going to climb this mountain no matter what.
Okay.
So I came back home, and I still remember calling my CEO Ron, and I told Ron, I've decided that I'll quit the job. I was the CEO of Ron's company in Mumbai. And I said I will quit the job and I will go climb Everest. Now Ron paused for a couple of seconds and he said, Kuntal, I think you should actually try climbing the moon instead. So of course, no one thought that I will, ever do, climb Everest. Most of them were like, again, he's just gone mad. He will do this for a while and he will give up and those kind of things. But that's sort of how my journey to climb Mount Everest started. It was just from that very small day in, on that peak in the Himalayas.
So definitely, we have a package also. अहिलेको लागि एउटा package हामी play गर्छौं. It's related to Kuntal. वहाँको चाहिँ journey, वहाँको photographs हरु हामी हेर्छौं. And then we'll come back in conversation with Kuntal Joisher again. Stay with us.
my God, the video felt so surreal. It was as if, you know, we were there, you know, itself. We were walking there, and some of the clips were actually so scary that even we got scared here watching at the video itself. So, you know, how many days does it take to reach the top of the mountain?
So the total expedition is about anywhere between 55 to 60 days, but this is divided into multiple stages. So the first stage is where you actually walk to the Everest base camp, and this takes anywhere between about 8 to 10 days. And once you are at the base camp, what you essentially end up doing is you have to let your body acclimatize to the various altitudes on the mountain.
Okay.
Now, just to tell your audience, next time, any of you guys take a flight, and the flight is at the cruise altitude of, let's say, 31,000 feet, when you look out the window, that height is what Everest is at. Okay. So it takes you just cannot say that, hey, I want to climb Everest, get to the base camp and just climb the mountain. You have to let your body adjust and acclimatize to those altitudes. And that stage is about 30 to 35 days where you do a lot of rotations on the mountain. And when I say rotation, you go climb the mountain to a certain altitude, let's say about 20,000 feet, and you come back down. The next time you go up, you go to 22,000 feet and you come down. And you keep doing that until you reach about 25,000 feet, and then you no longer go climb the mountain. You just sit and wait until the weather is correct on top of Mount Everest. Throughout the year, there are winds of more than 250 kilometers per hour on the top of Mount Everest, which is why you cannot climb it all during the year. During mid-May, these winds actually start becoming lower to about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. This is when all of us go and climb the mountain. So you wait for the right weather window. And once you know that, hey, let's say May 19th is the best day to summit, it takes 5 days from the base camp to the top once you are acclimatized. So then you back count and you start at May 15th, get to the top on 19th, come back down by 23rd or 24th, and then you start walking home. So you start the expedition on 2nd or 3rd April and you finish in late May. So about 60 days worth of time.
Okay, so when you were talking about weather, I just wanted to ask you something. You know, you were actually here when there was this massive earthquake in Nepal.
Right.
We all know about Kathmandu city and our city because, you know, we've seen it, but we never even thought of, you know, there are actually climbers in Mount Everest. There were climbers that time. So you were one of them as well. So can you just share your experience? How was it? I'm sure it was extremely scary for you as well. So, you know, your experience of that.
Right. So what happened that day was, this was April 25th. Okay. Now we were at camp 1 and all of us were, you know, fast asleep. So at about 6 in the morning, our Sherpa Mingma said, hey, you know, we had to really go down. It was snowing really hard outside. So I told Mingma, can you give us 15 minutes? We can have slight more sleep. And he's like, nothing doing. You have to get ready and go out. So all of us started walking. And by about 10:30, we had reached the base camp. And we came to the base camp. All of us were in the dining tent, sort of exchanging the stories. And we were all very excited that, you know, finally we are all going to, you know, achieve our dream of getting to the top of the world. And this is when the chair that I was sitting on started shaking a little bit. Now, I have lived in California. And even a magnitude 3 earthquake, I can, you know, detect it. So I was like, right away, this is an earthquake. So I told all my friends and they were like, no, you know, you are like altitude sick or something. You know, they were making my fun. 5 seconds later, the whole tent was shaking. Every chair, every pole, everything was shaking. We knew this was an earthquake. So we ran out and we were sort of standing on, you know, the glacier. And imagine a giant swing that is swaying from one end to the next. That's how gigantic this earthquake was. Of course, it was 7.9 magnitude, the biggest to hit Nepal in almost a century. So we were in middle of this earthquake. And as much as people think that an earthquake only goes on for 10 to 15 seconds, this one easily went for about 80 seconds. So here we are in the middle of it. We have no idea what's going to happen next. And the earthquake, you know, went away. It, you know, stopped. We were standing. And then we heard this loud boom, almost like there was a bomb blast somewhere. And a low cloud had set in at the base camp that day. So we really could not see any peaks. All we could hear is the noise coming from the east. Now, east is Everest. So you could see like literally entire base camp, everyone was outside their tents looking towards Everest. We were also doing the same, looking towards Everest. And then suddenly there were these 15 people in front of us who started running towards Everest.
Towards Everest.
Towards Everest.
So I'm thinking, if the danger is Everest, maybe possibly an avalanche is coming from Everest, why would someone run towards the danger? It doesn't make any sense. That's when we realized that actually danger was behind us.
Oh, okay.
So we turned around, and the moment we turned around, I was faced with this giant cloud of snow and ice. Imagine seeing from left of the sky to the right of the sky, wherever you could see, it's just filled with this huge avalanche, less than 3 seconds away from us. A lot of people ask me what was going on in my mind. And let me tell you that I didn't think that I was going to die. I was actually very certain that I was going to die.
Okay.
Because an avalanche this close, there is nowhere to run, there is nowhere to hide. And frankly speaking, more than getting scared of the avalanche, I was actually just very, very sad that I'm going to die today.
Okay.
That I have to do so many things in life and that my life is going to be over today. But anyways, in that panic, 3 of us went and hid behind a tent, and the avalanche came and hit us. And 10 seconds later, I am like alive. So I'm really happy that I'm alive. But I look at my body, and there's only 2 inches of snow on my body. In a typical avalanche, you would get buried under a feet or 2 of snow, and you would die, within few minutes. So I'm like, okay, great. But then the next thing that happened is I could not breathe at all. So I was trying to breathe, nothing's coming in, just snow and ice particles going, and I'm doing it again. Nothing's coming in. I'm like, what's going on? It's like someone had taken a plastic bag, put it on my face and trying to choke me. And then the climber next to me, his name was Yost Kabush, he saw all my struggle. And he opened his jacket and he said, Kuntal, you can come inside my jacket and breathe. So I went inside his jacket and I started breathing, and I'm like, wow, I can actually breathe now. So I started breathing, and for the next 3.5 minutes, as the avalanche passed over us, I sort of kept breathing inside his jacket. And I quickly realized that, there are always ambient pockets of air when you're wearing clothes, that are a little, roomy. So I was actually going inside his jacket and breathing from that air. And that's how sort of my life got saved. And till date, I'm thankful to Yost for, having that presence of mind in such a dire circumstance to open his jacket and say, hey, please come inside my jacket and breathe. So quickly, we ran up. We took a high ground to see what had happened to the base camp. Imagine if you do a before and after picture of something. Before, a hustling, bustling city of tents, and after, a flat, nothing. Everything devastated. We quickly ran to the medical tent, and we sort of, started hearing things like 21 people dead, 100 people injured, and, some really, really, stuff we heard, like, how people died, people, faces, shattered, and people's arms broken, and like really, really almost like a war zone kind of a situation. But then we also made a phone call to Kathmandu. And we used a satellite phone to, call our agency, and they said that, more than 8,000 people are dead in Kathmandu. And lakhs of people, living on the streets.
On the streets, yeah.
So, sure, we were, devastated at the base camp, but nothing had happened to us, frankly speaking. It was a big avalanche and people had died. But nothing happened to us. But all of our staff members, all of them wanted to go home. They wanted to be with their family in the time of need. Who wouldn't want to be?
Definitely.
And what was going on in my mind? That if we continue climbing this mountain, and let's say an aftershock comes and more people die, then entire world's focus would be Everest. And at this moment, entire world's focus has to not be Everest, but it has to be Nepal. And all the resources have to be diverted to the rural areas, the more damaged areas of Nepal. So I spoke to a few team members, and all of us decided that we didn't want to climb the mountain, that we are going to cancel our expedition. Similarly, just like we did make that decision, every team at the base camp made that decision, and everyone just started packing their stuff and went home, and the season was over. This is not something telling us that don't do it. It's just that everyone's saying that we don't want to do it, because Nepal is the focus, not us, not Everest.
Exactly. So that was quite an experience that you felt during the earthquake, right? So basically, we also wanted to ask you about your story, which is kind of very interesting in its own way. र उहाँको आफ्नो एउटा स्टोरी पनि छ जुन स्टोरीमा चाहिँ उहाँ एउटा शुद्ध पूर्ण सहकारी भए तापनि उहाँले एभरेस्ट चढ्ने चाहिँ डिसिजन लिनुभयो हैन सो उहाँको एउटा पारिवारिक एउटा अलिकति इमोशनल स्टोरी पनि छ व्हिच वी वुड लाइक टु शेयर विथ यु गाइज अल्सो सो द रिजन बिहाइन्ड हैन क्लाइम्बिङ माउन्ट एभरेस्ट एज वी से यु हेभ अ भेरी स्पेशल रिजन बिकज अफ योर फादर सो वी वुड लाइक टु आस्क यु अबाउट इट you know, if you feel comfortable to talk about it, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, sometime in 2001, my father was diagnosed with a disease called Lewy body dementia. It's called LBD, and it shares characteristics with a disease called Alzheimer's. I'm assuming you already, most of people know Alzheimer's. I still remember, you know, having a conversation with my dad's neuropsychologist, and she said, Kuntal, your dad in few years will be a vegetable. And the earlier you move on emotionally, you will be able to take better care of him. I didn't understand it back then. I was actually very furious at the neuropsychologist because she called my dad a vegetable. But, you know, over the period of years, I have seen my dad die bit by bit on a daily basis. You know, lose his character, lose his adventure spirit, lose everything, you know, that, you know, we knew that he was our dad. Which is why in 2006, when I was, you know, having a career in the United States, I, you know, thought, look, my dad needs me right now. You know, I can have a career, sure, you know, and I can, you know, support my mother from here in the US. But to me, you know, it felt like a cop out, you know, I didn't want to do it that way. So I told, you know, I'm going to quit my job in the US and come settle in Mumbai and take care of my dad. Luckily, things worked out and I didn't have to quit my job. I got the same job in Bombay. So I came back and started taking care of my father, and in last 10 years, he is now into very, very advanced stages of his disease.
Okay.
If I'm standing in front of him, he does not know that I'm his son, unfortunately. I think he's possibly to a point where he does not even remember his own name. And in last 5 years, he has been completely bedridden. Okay. And so I am his primary caregiver. The thing is that for all my life, I lived my own life. You know, sure, you know, parents were there and they were, you know, taking care of me and everything. But I really never had a very good relationship with my parents because I was always in my friends and I was always enjoying my time. And by the time I wanted to have a relationship with my parents, my dad was not there. I mean, I don't want to sound insensitive, but today I'm just taking care of a body. What I knew of my dad, he's not there, unfortunately, today. So it's also during this journey, we started learning a lot of things, you know, of how we made a lot of mistakes. We gave him wrong medication, which, you know, made his problem a lot worse. And we did a lot of, you know, things that we shouldn't have done. And I learned through this journey. And in last few years, I have made my mission that, you know, I want to share, you know, these learnings to the people. I want to tell them what mistakes I made, that they shouldn't make their mistakes. I have also seen a lot of people, when their parents are in this condition, like, you know, dementia is a very hard disease. Mental illness is a very tough illness to deal with. A lot of people don't share it with anyone. A lot of people, you know,
they don't talk about it.
They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So they also don't take care of their parents. Like, imagine, you know, having a big sore, and you have to every day do dressing, you have to every day clean it. A lot of people don't want to do those things. So they, you know, just let go of, you know, all that care. And I want to also, I wanted to raise awareness that, you know, care can be taken. It is also during this time that I had, you know, found my dream and calling of climbing Mount Everest. And, you know, my dad is the one who introduced me to the mountains. So his adventure spirit is something, you know, I always wanted to honor when I'm in the mountains. He's still alive, by the way, I want to tell your audience. This is, you know, I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I have all...
Yes, exactly. So
sorry.
Basically, when we think about your passion and all, you know,
right.
you are a vegetarian, right?
Right.
So we will be talking about this and your vegetarian journey as well.
Right.
So, but before that, we would like to take a short break. अहिलेको लागि हामी एउटा छोटो ब्रेक लिन्छौं. ब्रेक पछि फर्केर आउँछौं. कार्यक्रम के आज घरमै तपाई यतिखेर हेर्दै हुनुहुन्छ सागरिका अनि दीपाञ्जलीको साथमा र we have a very interesting guest अनि उहाँसँगको कुराकानीको क्रमलाई हामी अगाडि बढाउँछौं भने अहिलेको लागि let's take a short break.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Aaja Ghar Mai with Deepanjali and Sagarika, and we are in conversation with Kuntal ji, the first vegan to climb Mount Everest. Well, before the break, we were in conversation with you, and you were telling us about your bond with your father and about his dementia thing. So, would you like to just continue?
Right. So, what I was trying to say is that it is during this, my dad's illness, I also found my dream to climb Everest. And let me tell you that in, when I started, chasing my own dream of climbing Everest, it is not that, I'm not taking care of my father. I am taking care of my father. I'm giving him full quality care. And at the same time, I'm also chasing my dream. So I want to tell your audience that it is very much possible to take care of, your parents and chase your own dreams, and that you don't have to feel guilty about chasing your dreams. Like a lot of people would think, hey, his father is on the bed, his father needs 24/7 care, but he's still out there in the mountains, doing all these things. Look guys, I take care of my father when I'm there. I take care of him 100%. And when I am in the mountains, my mother and my wife, they become my father's primary caregiver, and they give as much, or if, they actually give more care to my father than I can even possibly imagine. So really want to even acknowledge my mother and my wife's role in all of this, in making my dreams possible, because without them, this would absolutely not be possible. So yeah, I just want to tell your audience that please don't feel guilty if you have a parent at home who's bedridden and whose caregiving you are doing. Please chase your dreams and, care for your parents.
Yes, definitely, and I'm sure it can be done, two things at the same time. For example, you are taking care of your family, of your father especially, and even when you're out in the mountains, your wife, your mother is there to take care of him. So, right. And I'm sure you have all the blessings of your father as well, whenever you climb a mountain. Now, again, talking about mountains, you're the first vegan to climb Mount Everest. That's such a big achievement, I would say. Now, I'm sure there must have been people who, who had said things like a vegan cannot climb Mount Everest, or there might be some kind of restrictions because you're a vegan, maybe because of your diet, or you might have faced a lot of challenges as well. So what do you want to say about it?
Right. So I decided to climb Everest in 2009, and by then I was already a vegan for about 7 years. And the first thing, like any reasonable person would do, I went on Google and I typed climbing Mount Everest as a vegan. And has it ever happened to you that Google has not given an answer? It's never happened, right? Never happened. But it happened to me. There was no answer on Google. There was just no precedent for this, of a person climbing Mount Everest as a vegan. So I wrote to my expedition leader and I asked, hey, I would like to climb Mount Everest as a vegan. And there was a lot of pushback, because the traditional mountaineering diet is a diet filled with a lot of meat, is filled with a lot of dairy, and is filled with a lot of eggs. But I told myself that I am going to climb Everest as a vegan, or I will not climb it at all. I was very, very clear. Veganism is what defines me. Veganism is my ethical, stance towards life. And I was very sure I will climb it as a vegan. Now, as I started going on the journey, I quickly realized that food was the least of my concern actually. Now, if you consider, climbing to the top, Mount Everest, one of my expedition leaders told me that Kuntal, to climb to the top of Mount Everest, you need a top of the world body and you need a top of the world mind. And I had started building a top of the world body. For that, you have to do some very, very difficult workouts. A typical workout that I would do is climb about 350 floors up and 350 floors down. And sometimes after completing these workouts, I would be such a point where I would think that I'm just going to black out and, fall down. But I would still have to continue after this, the next day, and go the same workouts. And I thought initially that my vegan diet would not support these kind of, workouts. But let me tell you that I had absolutely no problems at all. I could go and push myself harder and harder. And over the period of time, I realized this is just a no-brainer. People just don't know that it cannot be done. And because I'm the first one trying it, I'm succeeding. It's okay. There's no problem. The challenging thing was, how would I do this on the mountain? Once I come on the mountain, how would I, generate warmth in my body without eating meat, without eating dairy, without eating cheese? That's what most people do to generate warmth in their body. But even that was not a problem. I came on the mountains, and I worked with the Nepali teams here, the cook teams and everyone, and they were very readily, they helped
very
me.
Cooperative.
They cooperated with me and they gave me all the nice vegan food. And look, food was not a problem at all. The challenge I faced was not food, but the challenge I faced was in my gear. Most people think that veganism is only about food, but veganism is about not using animal or not exploiting animal in any way. Not just food, but it could also be your shoes, it could also be your toothpaste, it could also be the soap you are using. So I had to figure out, how am I going to replace wool? How am I going to replace leather? How am I going to replace the down in my down jacket, which is, got by slaughtering geese? Yeah. How am I going to replace all these things? Over a period of last 8 years, I have been able to find alternatives for wool. I have been able to find alternatives for leather as well as down. And it all boils down to, if you are committed to a cause, you will find a way. So that's what, sort of I focused. Animal rights is something I'm very passionate about. And I found out, every alternative that was required. And look, on 19th May, I stood on the very top of the world, eating vegan food and no problems at all. And I also had a vegan flag in my hand when I was, standing on top of the world. So look, if I can climb Mount Everest, I will tell you a little bit about myself. I will take some more time. I come from the Gujarati community, and let me tell you something about my community. I think we must be about 7-8 crore of us across the world. We are not known for our physical fitness. Most Gujaratis, if you talk to, will not even climb one floor. Forget climbing Mount Everest. Okay. I was 110 kgs before I decided to climb Mount Everest. So if I can climb Mount Everest as a 110 kg Gujarati vegan, then everyone in this world can climb Mount Everest or achieve different, difficult feats or achieve all their dreams on a vegan diet without any problems.
So basically, when we think of a vegan, or when we think a person is a vegan, we just think about the amount of protein that's required. From where do they get the protein, right? Right. So in your case, how do you get the protein?
What were the
from
alternative
the vegan diet?
foods and substitutes?
Yeah. What are the substitute for food and the source of protein for your food habits?
Right. So I will go into a little bit more technical stuff.
Yeah.
But what is protein? First of all, protein is a combination of 20 amino acids, and the only things in this planet that can manufacture protein are plants. Plants take the nitrogen from our environment and convert them into amino acids and store it in themselves. It is the carnivorous animals like lions and tigers, it is the herbivorous animals like cows and goats and all those that eat those plants, and their muscle is formed because they can digest the plants and convert it into protein and use it. The carnivorous animals eat the herbivorous animals and build their protein. In a way, if you see, all the protein in the world comes from plants in the end. So if you are going to eat vegan food and you are eating plants, then you are already getting sufficient protein. Let me take an example of a community from Nepal, which is the Sherpa people. Or actually, let me take an example of just the general diet that Nepali people eat. Possibly the maximum food that Nepalis consume is dal bhat. And in a plate of dal bhat, you would have dal, you would have a tarkari, you would have a lot of rice. Meat is always eaten on the side. And for a lot of times in the week, no one eats meat because meat is costly. So if 2.5 crore Nepalis can eat dal bhat and have the best body mass index on the entire planet, produce some of the best climbers on the planet, produce some of the best ultra runners on the planet, and have a generally very healthy population. Nepal does not have problems of heart disease. Nepal does not have problems of diabetes, hypertension. The sole reason is because Nepalis eat a lot of plants. Nepalis eat a lot of vegetarian food and meat on the side. This is the sole reason why Nepalis are so healthy.
Okay.
And again, going back to, your question, as long as you are eating a well-balanced diet, you will get your proteins. Everything right from a banana to a spinach leaf to a bowl of rice to a bowl of tarkari has some amount of amino acids in them, And so if you combine all of these, you get enough amino acids that will get converted into protein and you will have no problems. You can look at me. I am currently 80 kgs. I'm not falling off my feet or anything. I have never eaten, I don't count what protein I eat. I just eat a well-balanced diet and I have no problem building muscle. I have no problem training for climbing Mount Everest and doing these big feats. So protein and calcium and vitamins and all these things should be the last thing on your mind. The first thing on your mind should be eat healthy, which means eat very lot of vegetables, eat a lot of dal, and then roti and rice you can eat on the side. So as long as you are eating a healthy diet, you will be fine.
Definitely, it's all about eating healthy, a proper balanced diet, and even vegan भनेर पनि हामीले कति misconception हुन्छ कि diets हरु नपुग्ला, nutrition नपुग्ला भनेर, but then Kuntal ji here is actually a true example of how a balanced diet can actually keep you very healthy. र जुन वहाँको especially vegetarian diet, especially जुन vegetables को वहाँले राम्रो example पनि दिनुभयो नेपाली diet मा नै. र Kuntal ji here is also an example of where there's a will, there is a way, because even after being a vegan, there were so many difficulties in terms of his clothes, in terms of his equipment and food in the mountains, but somehow you know, he has actually you know,
so anyways, कार्यक्रममा हामी in conversation छौं first vegan Mount Everest climber Mr. Kuntal Joisher सँग, उहाँसँग कुराकानीको क्रमलाई हामी फेरि पनि अगाडि बढाउने नै छौं. तर अहिलेलाई भने कार्यक्रममा पालो भएको छ फेरि पनि अर्को ब्रेक लिने. We'll be right back. Stay with us. कार्यक्रम के आज घरमैमा.
Welcome back. You're watching Aaja Ghar Mai with me, Sagarika and Deepanjali, and we are in conversation with Kuntal ji, our guest for today. He's the first vegan to climb Mount Everest.
So yes, we are in conversation and we have very less time left. So finally, we would like to ask you about your future projects, your future expeditions. What have you planned?
So in about 2 days time, I will be flying to Lukla and I will be starting you know, my journey to climb Mount Lhotse. Mount Lhotse at 8516 meters is the 4th highest mountain in the world. It is right next to Mount Everest, and so I will be beginning this journey. And one of the biggest you know projects that I'm taking on as part of this journey is we have this school in Nepal called the Sansar Maya After School Program. This is one of the first of a kind programs in Nepal where we are trying to impart education to the kids here, and in a very different way, through some STEM projects, science projects, through art, through music, through dancing. We are you know giving education to the kids of Nepal. So one of the things I'm doing through this climb is I'm raising funds for the school so that you know we can have these schools, a lot of them in Nepal, and we can also go and teach a lot of teachers you know in the rural areas of Nepal the skills so that they can also do the education in same way in Nepal. So this is one of my biggest projects that I'm taking on right now.
So we would like to wish you a very best for this campaign as well. And finally, your message to the youth of Nepal and to all over the world, you know, your experience, your motivational, some inspiring thing, what would you like to share with our viewers as well?
Okay. I have 2 things for your viewers. So the first is, look, I tried climbing Everest in 2014 and the expedition was cancelled. I came back in 2015 and the earthquake happened and I went back home. 2 years back to back, you know, trying to accomplish my dream. A lot of people told me that you don't have what it takes to climb this mountain. A lot of people actually made a lot of fun of me. They said, don't try it even now. I want to tell your audience that if you have a dream in your life, if you have a passion in your life, then the biggest you know attitude or a characteristic that you want to build is do not give up. When I was you know faced by 2 failures, I did not say I'm going to give up. I told myself I'm going to train harder. I'm going to come back in 2016 and I'm going to get to the top. So if you want to you know sort of achieve such big dreams in your life, you cannot give up. You have to have a never say die attitude and keep at it, give your 500%, and I'm pretty sure you'll get to the top. But one of the things that I also want to tell your audience is, when I got to the top of Mount Everest, sure, those were the most 20 magical minutes of my life. But I did not suddenly become a Zen monk on the top of Mount Everest. You know, it is during the last 8-year journey where I transformed myself to a good mountaineer and to a good human being. So I also want to tell your audience that once you go on these journeys to achieve your dreams, please enjoy the journey.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, we had a very nice conversation with you. Thank you for coming into our show and sharing your experience as well. So yes, कार्यक्रमबाट अब हामीले बिदा माग्ने बेला भइसकेको छ. कार्यक्रम के आज घरमैमा हामी डेफिनेटली भोलि आउने नै छौं. कार्यक्रम हेरेर साथ दिनुभयो त्यसको लागि थ्यांक यू. This is Sagarika and Deepanjali signing off for now. Bye bye. Have a good day.
Hi everybody, I'm Sagarika.
And this is me, Laurisa. And if you like Aaja Ghar Mai on Kantipur Television HD,
then don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.
Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And don't forget to download our app.
Bye-bye.
Bye.